Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Year I Made It podcast. Today's episode is going to be about books. So one of my things that I have been talking about a little bit here and there is that I have been into reading. So I've been into reading, I would say on and off my whole life. I remember back in the day, we used to have the reading point quizzes you could get. I would be getting all of those. I'd read all the Harry Potters, loved reading as a kid. Then eventually picked up reading kind of on and off as an adult. And right now I'm on a pretty big reading kick. So I wanted to share with you guys some of the books I've been reading, am reading, what I like to read, all that good stuff. So I have kind of a bunch of different books that I read, I would say kind of between just fun, then professional development, personal development, all sorts of things. So I would say some good personal development books are Your Second Life Begins When You Realize You Only Have One. This book, I randomly bought it at an airport several years ago. I was traveling, I was super bored, I was like, I'll pick up this book, read it on the plane, fell in love. Definitely recommend this book. It is just a cute little story where this woman realizes ooh, I've just been barely getting through life, but this is all there is, so time to step it up. But it's really cool. I love Rachel Hollis. So Girl Wash Your Face, super great, kind of professional and personal development, and get your shit together because you can and you should sort of book. So I love Rachel Hollis. She also has a podcast. She has quite a few different books. Really like just kind of the concepts of what she talks about. So I also have her other book, Girl Stop Apologizing. I think both of them are really good, but if you want somewhere to start with her books, I definitely like these two. I think she has quite a few books, but this one I love, Eat, Pray, Love. So this is, I would say, a book that made me reconsider what meditation could be. And so I recently started doing guided meditations. The concept of meditation freaked me out, let me tell y'all. First of all, I was like, I can't do it. I can't be alone with my thoughts. I tried yoga once, didn't like it. The whole concept, not for me, right? So I did a guided meditation after I'd read this book. And also, this is the kind of book that if you're the sort of person, you read a book where somebody packs up their shit and moves to Europe for a year, and you're like, that'd be cool, I should do it. Don't read this book, because I read this book and I was like, that's what I should do, and I shouldn't, and I didn't. And I bought this townhouse instead. But anyways, I almost sold all my shit and moved to Europe because this book inspired me to do so. But I didn't. So this book is really cool when it talks about travel. One thing that I love about travel is the different cultures that you get to learn about, how other people live, things other people do, see, experience, what their life is like. And so she actually goes and lives in Italy, in India, and then in Indonesia, and talks about her experience. And the whole book is really just kind of the evolution of her essentially kind of going on a healing trip, if you want to call it that. Through all these different places, going on a spiritual journey, going through a meditation journey. Super, super cool book. So love this book, totally recommend this. Another actually personal development combo. So I know you guys have seen this book because one, it's everywhere, two, it's super cute. So Untamed, this is a really cool book. It's basically a book about being yourself. And so the woman that was the author of this book, she was actually married to a man and had basically her whole career built around being this super fabulous wife in this great marriage that she kind of maybe fabricated for her readers a little bit, and then plot twist, fell in love with her now wife, and gave the world a whole little plot twisteroo, as she should, because it's her life and she can. And so she shares about it here, and then she also has this little journal that's basically talking about how as we grow up in society, we're taught to be tamed, or taught to be tamed. We're taught to live in society's cages. We're taught to go do whatever society is that we think that we should do based on how we were brought up. And this teaches you to unthink anything like that and to just basically have your own life. So it's really cool. So I'll give y'all some journal prompt ideas. So one of the beginning ones, let's begin by unearthing ideas and expectations that you grew up with. What were you taught to believe makes a good daughter or child? Then if you go a little bit deeper, what were you raised to believe about sexuality? What type of people were you taught to love? How were you taught to express or repress that love. Like, it's really cool. It just teaches you like all these things. And again, super cute. So obviously they got me there. Obviously they got me with the cute cover here too. Get out of your head, stopping the spiral of toxic thoughts. This I think is a really cool one if you have anxiety and you have like the negative thought spiral as they call it, which is like, I'll give y'all an example. The other day I accidentally hit this woman in the Target parking lot, which is like the dumbest thing you can do, right? Like, and the problem with me is I say the first thing that comes to mind, and like whatever the truth is, just like I shouldn't, but I do, right? So I hit this woman in the Target parking lot, and I jump out, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm so sorry. I was looking at the freaking flower sale at Michael's, and I wasn't even paying attention. I hit you, which was the truth. You know, I was looking at the freaking flower sale at Michael's. They had a lot of cool flowers out front. I was in the market for some. They had some out. I saw them. I didn't see the person in front of me, though. I saw the flowers. So fortunately, there's like literally no damage to either of our cars. However, despite the fact that there's literally no damage to either of our cars, we like pull over, we both assess our damage, we both assess that there's no damage, like agree that there's no damage. I still had a whole anxious spiral about it mostly because I drive a work vehicle and I'm like have like the little perk where I can drive it personally as well, which is fabulous. So I'm literally like, shit, I got in a wreck in my personal vehicle or in my work vehicle on my personal time in the fucking Target parking lot like an idiot, hitting the back of this woman's car, like, and then it was just like a downhill spiral from there, which I had in the Michaels when I went to go and look at my flowers, which I obviously didn't get because I was on a whole spiral about how obviously I'm not getting the fucking flowers now. I just hit this woman because I was so distracted by the flowers. I don't even want the flowers anymore, right? Anyways, I don't know if y'all's mind works like that, but if it does, or if that was at all relatable, you should read this book and go therapy. But this book is really cool about stopping the spiral of toxic thoughts, and then it's also like kind of like faith-based, so that's cool. So it's talking about some of the things that you can't let go of, and like what things you just have to like give to like God or the higher power or whatever it is that you believe in, rather than keep worrying about it internally. So another cool one I recommend. So I am in this thing called Book of the Month. Book of the Month's like a little app, a little website, and you pay, I think it's like $15 a month, $15 or $16 a month, and you get a book every month, and it's like a nice book. Like this is one of them. A couple of those were one of them too, but so it's basically like recommends books for you based on like what's trending or what's new or what's popular or what's like topics people are wanting to read about. And then they also just have like a bookshelf, if you will, like tons of other books you can choose if you don't want one of those. Most of the time I pick one of like the ones for that month because they're always cool. So this was my one from last month or the month before, The Light Pirate. It's super cool. This is a fiction book, so very, very different than the others. So most of those are like kind of like professional development, personal development, self-help type books. This is just like a fun like fiction fantasy book about this woman that's born in a hurricane and gets secret powers. It's really cool. But that's a little fantasy book recommendation I have. So one thing about me is on my little reading journey, I am not the kind of person that starts and finishes a book. I do, but not in that order, right? So most of the time I'm in the process of reading several different books for several different reasons, and then I eventually finish them. So that's what I'm doing right now with this pile. So this is my current book reading pile. So I have been reading this book called Codependent No More. My therapist recommended it, and the funny story is that my therapist recommended this daily meditation book about codependency and the book about codependency, and I said, thank you, I will try the daily meditations, which don't make sense if you didn't read the book. And I go back to her and I was like, I tried the meditations for a couple days. She's like, did you read the book? I was like, no. She's like, read the book. I was like, fine. So I read the book, Codependent No More. It's actually a really, really good book. If you have anxiety, if you're a people pleaser, if you grew up in any sort of like environment where like there was like mental illness or anything like that. So I read that book, and then now I'm doing this daily devotion. And it's actually really cool. Like you can see like that's how short one is. Like literally just like bloop. Which is good because if I do a daily devotion, I need it to be, it's a daily meditation devotion, whatever you want to call it. I need them to be short because I have a short attention span. So these are just like perfect ones for me, just like a little page, half a page. And they all tie into concepts that came out of the book. So obviously if you haven't read the book, these make no sense, which is why my therapist was like, please go back and read the book before you try to do this. So this is a cool one, Codependent No More, and then The Language of Letting Go. So on my journey of doing HR, I deal with some people like I don't know how to communicate with. Like I don't know how to tell them like everybody in the office can't stand to work with you because you're so unnecessarily obnoxious, but they think they're like God's gift to that office. Everybody's worked with one of them, right? So if you're HR, you have to deal with them. So it's me. And so then people call me and they're like, what am I supposed to do with them? And sometimes I'm like, I don't know what you're supposed to do with them. Like, I don't know what to do with that. I don't. So I'm trying to learn. So I'm reading this book, Say It Straight or You'll Show It Crooked. So this is definitely a professional development book that is for if you commonly have to deal with people who are very defensive, argumentative, don't want to hear what you have to say, have their own opinions, and then how you can be able to like get your point across, to be able to get them to understand where you're coming from, and then also be able to make progress with them as far as like communication goes. So this is one that I'm reading for some of my professional development work projects that I'm working on. So I'll let you guys know I'm about halfway done, and I really do like it because the concept is really cool. It talks about how you have to plant goals in your mind, how you have to use structure, how you have to love yourself in order to be able to communicate well. And then it also talks about like decision making when you have to make decisions that impact others, which is a lot of my job is that somebody's always mad at me at work because I had to make a decision that impacted them or their department or something in some way, and they thought I should have done Q, but like Q wasn't even an option. So this will hopefully help me with some of those conversations. So my last two just like little fun books. These are also book of the month books, also fantasy books or fiction books. So Queen of Thieves, I'm probably like a third of the way into this one. Obsessed. It's basically about back after World War I in London, and instead of there being like a gang of men, which obviously there's this gang of women ran by this woman named Alice Diamond. So this is the Queen of Thieves. So I'm probably like a third done with this one. Really have enjoyed it so far. This last one, also one I'm reading right now, is called Black Cake, and so it is kind of like a grief inheritance story. That's about all I've gotten out of it so far. I'm about 50 pages in. And so this one, there's like a brother and a sister. They lost one parent. Now they've lost both their parents, and they've had to come back together because they lost their second parent. And then like their mom left this like voice recording for them about her life and their life and all this stuff they didn't know about. So that has been a really cool one. I'm only like 50 pages in, but so far I've liked it. So that is some of the books that I love. As you guys can tell, there's quite a few of them. I have more, but I really just kind of wanted to highlight some of the ones that I thought were relevant to some of the topics that I wanted to be talking about on here, and then also just share some fun ones that I'm reading with you guys. So to kind of wrap up, I just wanted to talk about some of the reasons that I love to read. So I love the creative outlet that reading is. Like when I'm reading a fantasy book or like a fiction book, I literally get to make this story in my mind. Like I can read this book and like I'm reading the book and it's like I'm there in my mind with like the story that I created. Like I think that's one thing that's just so cool about reading fiction books or like any kind of books is you're able to create that story and that narrative in your mind. I also, of course, love my personal development books. I'm always trying to do things to just kind of better myself as a person, as a leader, within relationships, within communication. And there's a lot of resources out there if you want them and you like to read. So that's just one thing that I do quite a bit. And then my only other little exciting books I love or things I love about reading takeaway is if you are not a part of the Book of the Month little app, you should definitely join it. Also, they're not paying me to say that. I wish they would, but they're not. And so you get to pick really cool books. Like this book, if I would have bought it in a store, it would probably be like $30. But because of my little membership, I get like a cool book for like $15 every month. And then also, like, I don't know if you guys are like a sucker for these, but it's in your little bookmark, which I love. And then also, I got so many points with them that I got a free little tote bag, and the tote bag has a little book pocket, which I'm obsessed with. So anyways, it's the little things, as you guys know. But that is all I had. I just wanted to show you guys some books I love, share those, and hopefully this inspired you to get reading. Anyways, love you babes, happy healing.